Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk to you about a question that has haunted humanity since the dawn of time. Why do we fall? Why do we stumble, struggle, and sometimes even fail? Why does life, despite all our efforts, seem to knock us down when we least expect it? My friends, failure is not an enemy. Falling is not the end. It is a process, a refining fire, a teacher that shapes us into who we are meant to be. The problem is not the fall itself, it is what we believe about the fall that determines whether we rise again or remain defeated. You see, greatness is never built on an unchallenged road. Destiny does not come to those who avoid trials, but to those who understand that falling is a step, not a stop. And so today we will uncover the purpose of our falls, the wisdom behind our failures, and how we can rise stronger, wiser, and more powerful than ever before. Failure is a seed of success. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is a crucial part of it. If you study the lives of great men and women who changed history, you will find that failure was not an interruption in their journey. It was the foundation upon which they built their legacy. Every failure carries within it a seed, a potential for something greater, something stronger. But the problem is, most people do not recognize this seed. They see failure as a dead end instead of a doorway. Imagine a farmer who plants a seed in the soil. At first it looks like nothing is happening. The ground appears lifeless, untouched. But beneath the surface something is breaking. The seed is dying so that it can bring forth life. If the farmer gets impatient and digs up the soil to check on it, he will destroy the process. Many of us do this with failure. We abort the process before the seed of success has a chance to grow. We focus on the pain of falling rather than the purpose behind it. Think about Thomas Edison, the man who invented the light bulb. History tells us that he failed over 1,000 times before he finally succeeded. But when asked about it, he didn't say he failed. He said he found 1,000 ways that did not work. This is the mindset of those who understand that failure is a seed, not a sentence. It is an opportunity to refine, to correct, and to rebuild. The difference between those who succeed and those who do not is not in how many times they fall, but in how they perceive those falls. Some of the greatest businesses, inventions, and breakthroughs in human history came after failure. Walt Disney was fired from his first job because his employer thought he lacked imagination. Can you believe that? The man who built an empire of creativity was once told he had none. Colonel Sanders, the founder of KFC, was rejected over 1,000 times before he found success. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. The list goes on and on. The world's most successful people have one thing in common. They saw their failures as stepping stones, not as shackles. But the truth is, most people give up too soon. They experience one failure and assume they are not meant to succeed. They start believing that failure defines them rather than refines them. But I tell you today, failure is a tool in God's hands. It is not a curse. It is a classroom. When you fall, the seed is planted. But what you do next will determine whether it grows into a mighty tree or remains buried in the soil of regret. Your fall is not your identity. One of the greatest lies that people believe is that their failure defines them. They think that because they fell, they are now failures. They wear their mistakes like a name tag, allowing their past to dictate their future. But let me tell you something. Your fall is an event, not an identity. What happens to you is not who you are. Too many people live in the shadow of their failures, afraid to step out because they believe they are permanently marked by what went wrong. But God never intended for you to live in shame. Think about a child learning to walk. When a baby takes its first steps and falls, does the mother say, "Oh, my child is a failure at walking"? No! She claps, she cheers, she encourages the baby to try again. Why? Because she knows that falling is part of the process. She doesn't define her child by the fall. She defines the child by their potential to get up and walk. But somewhere along the way, we lose this perspective. When we grow older, we start labeling ourselves by our mistakes. Look at the story of Peter in the Bible. Peter was bold, passionate, and full of faith, but he made one of the biggest mistakes in history. He denied Jesus 3 times. Imagine the shame, the regret, the pain of knowing that in the moment when he should have stood firm, he failed. He could have allowed that fall to become his identity. He could have remained the man who denied Jesus, but that is not what God called him to be. Jesus restored him, reminding him that his failure was not his identity. And what happened? Peter went on to become one of the most powerful leaders in the early church. Now let me ask you, what failure have you allowed to define you? Maybe you lost a business and now you call yourself a failure. Maybe you made a bad decision and now you think that's all you are. Maybe you fell into sin and now you believe you are beyond redemption. But let me tell you the truth. Your fall does not have the final say over your life. You are more than your worst mistake. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it. If you hold on to failure as your identity, you will never move forward. You will stay stuck repeating the same patterns because deep down you believe you are still the person who fell. But the moment you realize that your fall was just an event, not a definition, you take back your power. You are not a failure. You are a warrior in training. Every champion has scars. Every leader has a past. Every great success story includes moments of struggle, doubt, and defeat. But the difference between those who rise and those who remain on the ground is the belief that their fall is not their identity. The fall reveals who you really are. A fall is not just an obstacle, it is a mirror. It does not create who you are, it reveals who you already are. When everything is going well, it is easy to believe we are strong, wise, and unshakable. But when we fall, when we face loss, rejection, and failure, that is when our true character is tested. The fall does not weaken you, it exposes what was already inside you. It shows your mindset, your faith, your resilience, and your willingness to fight for your destiny. Think about gold. Gold is not purified in comfort, it is purified in fire. When heat is applied, impurities rise to the surface. The fire does not make the gold impure. It only reveals what was already within it. Your fall, your failure, your hardship. It is the fire that brings out what has been hidden in you all along. Some people discover fear in the fire, while others discover faith. Some uncover bitterness, while others uncover purpose. The question is not whether you will fall. The question is, what will your fall reveal about you? Look at the story of Job. Job was a righteous man, wealthy and successful. But when he lost everything, his family, his health, his riches, his true nature was revealed. His friends thought he must have been wicked for such a tragedy to come upon him. But Job's fall did not expose wickedness. It revealed faith. In his darkest moment, he said, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." His loss did not define him. It proved what was inside him all along. And because of that, his latter days were greater than his former days. Now, contrast that with King Saul. Saul was chosen by God, anointed to be king. But when pressure came, when the trials and falls of leadership tested him, what did it reveal? Insecurity, pride, and disobedience. The fall did not ruin him. It only exposed what was already within. That is why Saul lost his throne, while David, a man who also fell many times, was still called a man after God's own heart. This is why two people can face the same fall but have two different outcomes. One person loses a job and falls into despair, while another loses a job and sees an opportunity to build something greater. One person's heartbreak turns into bitterness, while another person's heartbreak turns into a testimony of healing. It is not the fall that determines your future. It is what the fall exposes in you and how you respond to it. So I ask you today, what has your fall revealed? Has it exposed faith or fear? Has it shown perseverance or a desire to give up? Has it uncovered a heart that trusts God or a heart that doubts Him? The fall does not come to destroy you. It comes to awaken you. It is an invitation to grow, to change, and to become the person you were always meant to be. Every fall has a lesson. Nothing in life happens without a purpose. Every fall, every setback, every failure carries within it a lesson, a hidden wisdom that, if understood, can change your future. But the problem is that most people are so focused on the pain of the fall that they miss the lesson. They see the disappointment, the loss, the embarrassment, but they do not stop to ask, what is this trying to teach me? Life is a classroom, and the falls we experience are its greatest teachers. Some lessons cannot be learned in success. They can only be learned in failure. Some wisdom does not come from victory, but from struggle. The reason many people repeat the same mistakes, face the same challenges, and stay stuck in the same cycle is that they refuse to learn from their falls. They blame others, they make excuses, they run from the pain, but they do not pause to ask, what is God trying to show me through this? Look at the story of Joseph. Joseph had dreams of greatness, but before he reached the palace, he had to go through the pit and the prison. His fall was not just an accident. It was a training ground. In the pit, he learned humility. In slavery, he learned diligence. In prison, he learned leadership. Every fall prepared him for the throne. If Joseph had not gone through those hardships, he would not have had the wisdom, patience, and strength to rule a nation. What seemed like failure was actually his preparation. The same is true for you. Your fall is trying to teach you something. Maybe your failure in business is teaching you patience. Maybe your heartbreak is teaching you discernment. Maybe your rejection is teaching you to stop seeking validation from people and start seeking it from God. The lesson is always there, but only those who humble themselves, reflect, and listen will find it. History is filled with people who turned their falls into lessons and changed the world because of it. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, was cut from his high school team. That failure could have destroyed his confidence, but instead he used it as fuel to train harder. He learned that rejection was not the end, it was a challenge to rise higher. But the tragedy is that many people waste their falls. Instead of learning from them, they complain about them. Instead of growing, they become bitter. Instead of seeing the lesson, they see only the pain. But pain without purpose is pointless. If you do not learn from your fall, you are doomed to repeat it. So today I challenge you, look at your past failures, your past disappointments, and ask yourself, what was the lesson? Because the moment you find the lesson, your fall stops being a failure and starts being a foundation for something greater. Falling is proof that you're moving forward. The only people who never fall are those who never try. If you have never failed, it means you have never stepped out of your comfort zone. You have never taken a risk, never pushed beyond what is easy. Falling is not a sign of weakness. It is proof that you are in motion, that you are striving for something greater. The people who achieve greatness are not those who never fall, but those who fall, get up, and keep moving. Think about a runner in a race. The only way they can trip and fall is if they are actually running. A person standing still will never stumble. But standing still is not progress. Standing still is not growth. The fact that you have fallen means you were trying to achieve something. It means you were reaching higher. The greater the challenge, the greater the risk of falling, but also the greater the potential for growth. Many of the world's most successful people have stories of failure, stories of falling. But they did not let their falls stop them. Instead, they used those falls as stepping stones to something greater. Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, failed over 1,000 times before he succeeded. When asked about his failures, he didn't see them as defeats. He saw them as learning experiences. He said, "I have not failed. I've just found 1,000 ways that won't work." His falls were not the end of his story. They were the process that led to his breakthrough. The same is true for you. If you have fallen, if you have failed, if you have stumbled, it means you are on a journey. It means you are in the process of becoming. Do not be discouraged by the fall. Do not let it make you afraid to try again. Fear of failure is what keeps people stuck. Fear of falling is what stops people from ever stepping into their calling. But God never called you to live in fear. He called you to walk by faith, to take risks, to move forward, even when you don't know what's ahead. Look at the story of Peter walking on water. When Jesus called him out of the boat, Peter stepped forward. He did something no one else dared to do. And yes, he fell. He started sinking when he looked at the waves, but let's not forget, he was the only one who walked on water in the first place. The other disciples stayed in the boat. Peter's fall was proof that he had the courage to step out. And because of that, Jesus lifted him up and he continued forward. So today, if you have fallen, don't stay down. Don't let the fear of failure stop you from trying again. Falling is proof that you are moving. It is proof that you are growing. And as long as you get up, as long as you keep pushing forward, your fall will not be the end of your story. It will be the reason you succeed. You were meant to rise again. Falling is not the end of your story. No matter how hard you fall, no matter how deep the pit, no matter how painful the failure, God did not design you to stay down. You were meant to rise again. There is a reason you are still here. There is a reason your heart still beats. There is a reason God wakes you up every morning. It means your fall is not final. It means there is more ahead. It means your story is still being written. A righteous man falls 7 times but gets back up again. That is what the Bible says. Notice it does not say a righteous man never falls. It does not say a righteous man is perfect. No, it says he falls again and again, but he gets up. That is what separates those who fulfill their purpose from those who don't. It is not the absence of failure, but the presence of resilience. The ability to stand up when everything in you wants to stay down. The courage to believe again when your heart has been broken. The strength to try again when you feel like giving up. Look at David. He was a man after God's own heart, but he fell. He made mistakes. He failed. He sinned. But he got back up. He repented. He learned, and he kept walking in his calling. Look at Joseph thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, locked in prison. He could have given up at any point, but he refused to let his fall be his final chapter. He held on, and in due time he was lifted to the highest position in the land. Jesus himself, the greatest example of all, fell under the weight of the cross. On his way to Calvary, the burden of the world, his body gave out, and he collapsed under the load. But he didn't stay down. He got up. He kept moving. He carried that cross to the place of his sacrifice because he knew falling was not the end of the story. And 3 days after his death, he rose again, victorious over sin, victorious over death, victorious over everything that tried to keep him down. That same resurrection power is in you. No matter how far you have fallen, no matter how impossible your situation seems, no matter how many people have counted you out, you were meant to rise. The enemy wants you to believe that your failure is final, that your mistake disqualifies you, that your past defines you. But God is saying, get up. Your purpose is still alive. Your future is still waiting. Your best days are not behind you, they are ahead of you. So rise again. Rise in faith. Rise in strength. Rise in purpose. The fall was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to prepare you for your comeback.